Origin story of Pearl Street is that the CEO and my co-founder Thuraj, he and we met in a Sri Lankan restaurant in New York, and it's great food, and I think that was probably the catalyst for a great conversation that happened. I had just come out of banking, and I had a deep desire to work in climate tech and climate finance. He had actually been a co-founder in a couple of other energy-related startups, which were also focused on distributed energy resources. And he has an engineering and project management background. So the two of us were effectively coming at the same problem from, I would say, almost, right angles. His view was that you had these projects which were small, and he had had first-hand experience of how difficult it was to actually raise financing for projects like those, even though they're economically viable. And I had come from the world of big project finance and structured finance, and I had observed firsthand the inefficiencies and, I would say the issues which surround scale in that space. When it's really big, when it's $1 billion project, it's actually easier to get it financed because people are willing to put in the effort. People are also more comfortable with the parties involved because they end up being typically large corporates. When it is tiny projects, as exist in the distributed energy space, we're thinking about like small solar installations on rooftops. We're talking about EV chargers or, fleets of EVs themselves, or if we are looking at batteries, all of these small size projects, well, in aggregate, they add up to a lot of expense. So they'll add up to, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. But at each project level, because it is very small, it requires the very similar amount of effort as you would for a large project, but you have to replicate it over and over and over again. So essentially, that was the problem that we came up with, that, hey, you know what? We can't have a solution to climate problems without having a lot of these projects implemented, right? And if you're not going to be able to solve that problem without the implementation of these projects, what that means is that you're going to soon run up against that problem of scale. And so the real solution, or one of the real solutions that you have to find, is how do you get these distributed smaller projects bankable, and how do you get them financed? So yeah, that is where it all started, and well, it's been going on for the last 5 years now. We've obviously taken that core idea and we've translated it into both a set of technology products, as well as services that surround it. So we help project developers actually originate their projects in a way that they are not just technologically, but also financially feasible. We help them find development financing. And in fact, we work for the development finance funds to locate these kind of projects. So we're sort of sitting at the intersection of developers bringing their projects, as well as the funds bringing their money. And once those two things come together, projects get de-risked, they get built. After they are built, we also provide the technology to monitor how the project is doing. You want to know how it is doing because that's how you can take corrective action, or you can even bundle these up and sell them into larger portfolios as a process known as aggregation. And that's how we believe that this entire space is going to grow and mature and become part of the overall capital market. So the 3 habits which I've been practicing, I guess, for almost like a couple of decades, I would say, and whenever I've used them, they have turned out to be really effective, is exercise, journaling, and meditation. And it doesn't have to be in that order, but it kind of, for me, what really works is to get the exercise done first. During the cool down, do a little bit of meditation, and then journal my thoughts and really clear my head before I get into the hectic day itself. As a bonus, I'm going to suggest a fourth habit, which I'm still working on, which is to take a lot of walks. Walking is something that's really, really helpful. Again, I think during the workday to get, not just the steps, but the sunshine, clear your mind, all of those things. So I think when you look at industry trends, it's important to realize that there are two parts to it. There is the trend itself, and then there is the noise. And quite often, I think it's very easy to get drowned out in the noise. And, that's where, being on LinkedIn, other social media, or, sometimes even some of the news that you hear, because quite often the news is especially in a growing space, tends to be more about the exciting things than about the real substantive things underlying that space. So for me, I think the uh, two things which kind of help is one, really get connected to people in that space and have in-depth conversations with them and really understanding their points of view, the challenges that they're facing, their day to day. It sounds like it's very micro, but when you actually put it together in the aggregate, it really points to what are the underlying trends, what are the things that people are really concerned or excited about. When you hear 10 people say the same thing, you kind of know you're onto something there. The second thing which helps is, reading opinion pieces and, in-depth research by some of the more respected folks in the field. I find that spending a little extra time over there and maybe not getting the dopamine hits, but really like getting in there helps a lot. So I'd say the RevTech Labs program has probably been the most effective program that we as a startup have been through. I won't name names, but we have been through a few others. I think what made it really effective was that there were two sets of people. One was the RevTech Labs team itself. And I really like the fact that you folks and folks like Dan have sort of been in that position where they've looked at what, as a startup founder, you think it's a unique thing, but from their perspective, it's like they looked at that thing over and over and over again. So they have seen again the trends, the patterns, right? And they're able to give us the team itself is able to actually give you some really solid advice on where you stand and what your roadmap should be, which is very valuable. The second part, which I found was really, really powerful, was the advisors. And again, the advisors are truly the most relevant set of advisors that we've actually ever been introduced to. They are used to working with fintechs. And again, even though we are not really a traditional fintech, we are, we always get put into like the energy and fintech sort of box. So we're off by the side a little bit, but people who have worked on structured finance, project finance, or have worked in the banking, servicing sort of space, people who have understood the GTM problems of addressing large financial institutions as customers, or just having been in that general space, it's really powerful. I think so. It's not just that it's the average quality of the advisor is great, which it is, but it's also their relevance to the kind of startup that we are, which made a huge difference.